inspire.
Welcome back to Starting Now. I'm your host, Jeff Sarris. This is the show where I talk to entrepreneurs to showcase the many different paths that one can take to start and grow a business. Today, my guest is Grammy-nominated songwriter and producer Chris Sernel. Chris has written songs that appeared on Lego Batman, Lego Ninjago. He's written for Weezer, for Cee Lo Green, for Jason Derulo, and the list goes on and on. This was a really great conversation. We first dive into his original band, which is how I found him, and we spend some time sort of reminiscing on those days and how he built a business out of his band at a time that was really ahead of the curve. Like he was doing some really interesting things in terms of branding and promoting his band that I think even now, almost 15 years later, there's so much to learn from his approach. This was an awesome conversation. I'm really excited to share this one with you. And we dive into everything from those early days in the rock band to songwriting and producing all the way up until today. So I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So without further ado, my conversation with Chris Sernel. What happened was Mike posted the, Making the Band Coca-Cola commercial. Yeah. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, that just came out of nowhere for me. I don't even know if I knew him well enough to know that he was a drummer at that time. Like, I think it was pretty early, but that was one of the things that I was really curious about. And I guess we'll dive into it, but how did that come about?
That was funny too. Mike was in the, so there was a first version of Escape from Earth, and a couple of members left, and we're all best friends now, and everything's fine. But so anyway, we needed a new drummer and guitar player, and there was a competition for Coca-Cola and MTV, like Making the Band. It was tied into the Making the Band TV show, and they wanted to find a band because that was like a pop show, but they wanted to come up with bands. So you had to submit why your band should be, I don't know, what's the story behind your band and why you should be whatever. So I wrote up like a crazy essay about how I was a CPA and I went to college and I played the game that my mom wanted me to play. And then I said, F that, I want to go be in a band. And, here we are. We work with, all these big producers and we've had some success and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that was all kind of happening while we're in between members. I'm just, working. I'm like, we'll figure this member thing out. So, I get a call like, hey, you're in the final 5 for this Coca-Cola thing. Like, just stay tuned, whatever. And Mike and Scott joined the band and we're just rehearsing and getting ready. So like literally after like, maybe it was less than a month of these 2 new guys being in the band, like, hey guys, we're flying to New York. They're putting us up in the Four Seasons in New York City, Times Square. We're going to be on stage at this like Ryan Cabrera. I haven't thought about this in a long time. Like Teen People event. You're going to shoot a commercial over the weekend for Coca-Cola and MTV. And, they're going to take you out and you're going to have a Teen People spread and all this stuff. So literally they're in the band for 1 month and like an unbelievable like thing comes through.
Yeah, that's wild.
So it was great. It was totally crazy. And it was a lot of fun. And I remember she's like, hey, you're only supposed to be here for like 2 days. But she's like, we had to like delay one of the things. So like, we're going to have to, unfortunately, she says, we're going to have to keep you up here for like 5 days. Is that okay? Don't worry. We'll cover all your expenses. Like free trip to New York. Like, so we got it we all flew at the time, our girlfriends out and stuff too. It was amazing. Anyway, so that was their christening into the band was, hey, so you joined our band and now we're going to New York and we're going to have all these things.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. Like, and
pretty wild.
Before that point, what kind of notoriety did you have? Because you were already, what year was that? Do you remember offhand?
That's 2000, maybe 5.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
So you're like maybe like 4 or 5 years into the band at that point.
Right. Like there was early, the first 1 or 2 years of the band were like just us figuring it out. We sucked at the time. And it was like, what's your sound going to be? What is everything going to look like? But like after a couple years of figuring that out, we kind of figured it out a little bit and got pretty good. We had played Metro probably a bunch of times. Actually, we did. We played Metro, headline Metro a bunch of times. We had showcased for a bunch of labels. I would say got very close to record deals from on a couple different things. Like they were flying in the bosses and like, this is it, hey, we're going to get something. And we had worked with Ray DeLeo, who had produced Filter stuff, and then Bob Ezrin, who produced Pink Floyd's The Wall and Kiss and Alice Cooper and Everybody Under the Sun. And so we had reached, a point where it was like, I don't know what more we can do as an unsigned local band beyond that. And it was like, so it was a little bit discouraging. Like, man, we've had all this like seeming success and we can't get a record deal. At the time, that was just sort of the holy grail, I guess. But, and then, a couple of members left the band, and then these, Mike and Scott joined, and then all of a sudden we're on MTV.
Yeah.
So that was bizarre. I mean, it was great. And I mean, that like Escape from Earth history is all like bizarre, like I kind of can't believe some of the things we were able to accomplish. And I'm not actually sure we deserve some of them, but they happened all the same.
Well, that was the thing, because when you were doing that, I was still working my day job and really interested in like branding and marketing and sort of building a business. So I really, I loved everything you were doing, because by that, the second album I know of, I don't know if there was one before, at the very beginning, but the, what is it? The brown one. Who Do I Have to Kill, maybe? Is that?
Yeah, right. So yeah.
So with that one, you ended up doing your own Cupcake Records. You had like your launch party and stuff. I just loved the brand just flowing through there. What was the impetus for doing your own record label? Because I feel like you were a little like ahead of the game on that.
Yeah, I think it ties back to what I was saying. We had played the game of, we worked with all these big producers and sold out Metro and played House of Blues, and we toured with some big bands and all that. And it was like, I don't even know what else we could do. So it was like, for a record label, what else do you want? We don't know what else you want. So, and like you said, I think we'd been marketing's always been maybe a side hustle passion for me. I can get more into that too with the next project after that. But it was like, let's just do this ourselves. We, like instead of relying on other people to decide that we've been picked and chosen to succeed, like forget it. We have enough of a fan base. We have enough things happening. We have enough the Coke thing. Suddenly you're on, I'm getting millions of impressions every day, every time that thing aired on MTV. So it was like, we've got a big fan base and there's a lot of people. So let's just put it out ourselves. So it was like, let's make the record ourselves, put it out ourselves, just do it our own way. And that was kind of where we were at. And it was a lot. It was a ton of fun. Were you ever at Cupcake Fest?
I think I was. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember offhand. It's been so many years now, because that was probably maybe.
Like, I don't even like this is all coming back to me, and I'm not even sure how, because it's a little fuzzy. But we had the initial record release party was Cupcake Fest 1, where we had I think we had it at Metro, and I think we bought like 800 cupcakes. And like, if with admission, you could go get a cupcake. So, and we had like 2 or 3, or maybe it was 4 or 5 different Cupcake Fests. But yeah, so we did that, and we're like, let's just run with this ourselves and have fun with it. And Cupcake Records was our thing.
Yeah, it was. Were there any specific inspirations that you found for doing that? And we're gonna definitely fast forward in a minute, but I don't know. I love this time.
I'm trying to think of like, I think I was into like Johnny Cupcakes was a t-shirt brand.
Yeah.
So the cupcake thing kind of, and I was like, okay, that's a different industry. So like the cupcake thing, like maybe that was like maybe a slight impetus for it. But beyond that, like every Metro show, we'd have like giveaways, like the person that could bring in the most people to the show, we would give away like guitars and stuff. Because like if everybody's pushing hard, like you sell out a show, 1,000 people, a $10 ticket, buying a $300 guitar for somebody is it's worth it, and that kid gets a guitar, we all sign it. We like a couple times we took people out for like bowling with EFE. There was all sorts of ridiculous fun things that we did. Like, it was at least fun for us. Hopefully it was fun for them too. But I remember we took a girl named Ruba bowling with EFE. We gave away MP3 player one time. There was all sorts of it was always like, and I feel like I was, and I say but we were ahead of the curve on marketing. Like, we were doing things 5 to 10 years ahead of where, like today, everybody gets all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is 2005 through 2000, 2003 maybe through 2008, and we were doing it all back then before everybody else was doing it. So it was super effective. It wasn't like, oh, it's just a marketing thing. It's like, no, this is, and it was fun, and we were super involved with the fans. We'd always spend tons of time hanging out, talking to people, answering everything, and yeah, I don't know. That may not answer your question, but marketing was always a big part of it.
Yeah, and it was super fresh at the time. I mean, it wasn't common. Johnny Cupcakes is a great inspiration because he was doing something really, really unique already. And
right.
Now, like you said, people sort of know, like, you don't have to worry about the gatekeepers. You can go on Amazon, publish your novel. You can do all these things, but it's easy to forget that it wasn't that long ago that there really wasn't all of these there weren't all these systems in place to really do it on your own.
Like how easy is it to put out an album on Spotify through TuneCore or DistroKid today? It's like a couple clicks and you're in. But back then, it's like, it's not that. It wasn't that, and it was like, putting out your own things was tough, and you couldn't just blast it out to people. So that was part of it. So we're just and I'll get to this more in a second. But it was always like, let's do the opposite of what everybody else is kind of doing. Because with Escape from Earth, we kind of played the game. We tried, we built up a fan base. Because the labels say, hey, we want to see fans, we want to see some sales, we want to see, work with the big producer, good songs, blah, 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 good pictures, promo. So we did all that. We could sell out plays. We worked with all the big producers, and we still couldn't get a record deal. So it was kind of like, let's do the opposite of what they told us to do in some respects. Like, let's forget you. We don't need a record label. We're going to do all these things ourselves. And are you familiar with Oh Hush, my project Oh Hush?
Yeah,
no?
So that's what I thought we'd get there. Okay, and then Love to Hate Your Music is the business, the company, correct?
Yes, Hate to Love Your Music. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I wanted to make sure I dove in a little bit and
cover back. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I've been following along just because we've been connected for so many years, but loosely. You don't always see everything. Yeah. You don't know everything that's going on.
Right.
So yeah, before we zoom forward on there, what did young Chris aspire to do? Did you aspire to be a rock star? Were you naturally musically inclined? What did you expect?
So my earliest memory of what I wanted to be at career day, first grade, I wanted to be a magician, and it's written in some book. So I was like, wait, I was off by 2 letters. Magician, change it to M-U-S, musician. So I think maybe I was just a little off, but I did want to be a magician eventually. Apparently I always wanted to be a performer of some kind. And then, I grew up in white suburban Park Ridge where everybody goes to college and gets a real job. And so my parents are college educated people and all that. So it was, music. I as a teenager, I loved music, and I didn't think it was maybe attainable to be like a musician or a rock star or anything like that. But it was always a huge passion, and I put a lot of time into it. And then when it was time for college, it was okay. Well, time for college. What do you want to study? So I'm studying accounting at University of Illinois because I'm good at math and whatever. And my parents, that's one my parents would like. And by the way, this was kind of the story that got us the Coke MTV gig, this whole thing, telling them that. But but then in college, I kept writing, kept doing stuff. And then I graduated. I got a job. I worked at Arthur Andersen, which was maybe one of the top few places you could work as a CPA, which is ridiculous. I kind of can't believe I did that. But anyway, and then I, after a couple of years, I'm like, wait, I hate this life. I hate this working all these hours. There's a ceiling on the amount of money you can make and all that. But it was, music was really becoming a passion. And I remember I called my friend Rob Kleiner. I was like, what do I need to do to get a band and figure this thing out? And he's like, listen, it needs to be your life. I know you have a day job. You come home at 5, you work till 2 a.m. every day. You go to shows, you meet people, you have to throw everything into it. And real fast forward, I started Escape from Earth. And once things started getting good, it was like, I think we could be, you asked about young Chris, but it was I don't think young Chris wanted to be a rock star. When I was in high school, we played at the V Show and we did Enter Sandman or something like that. And
nice.
It was, it was, and I always wanted to be that, but I don't think I actually thought it was attainable until I was maybe like 23, like just out of college, like, oh, maybe I can get this band going and maybe it's actually attainable. So young Chris wanted to be a rock star. Young Chris I was probably practical enough to go, oh, this is probably not attainable. But then when like I got a glimmer of it, I was like, oh, maybe this is something that we can actually get there, and I can, get to that point with, and somehow here I am. But yeah, so I think other than magician, then it was rockstar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so when Escape from Earth was, we're not going to sit on Escape from Earth too much
It's
longer.
okay.
But
it's fine.
Yeah. When that started to be profitable, like sort of what was the point that you transitioned from, okay, I have a job and I do this, into this is what I do and what I'm going to do?
Profitable? What are you talking about? I mean, it's not that it was never profitable, but I think when you're with a band, any money you make goes right back in. Mm-hmm. So it's nobody's sitting there going, "Hey, we're doing this as a job," and we can get to that more later. But at first it's investment, because it's like we don't have anything going on. We have to buy gear, we have to buy merch, and you hope to sell some of it. We have to pay producers to record, and we have to, either rent a van to go play a show. There's no, I don't know that anybody would. Yeah, I don't. Not that Escape from Earth didn't make a cent, but I don't think it was years before we actually started paying a little bit out. Like, hey, here's $50. I remember actually one year, it was with Mike and Scott when they were in the band. At some point it was like I bought everybody Nintendo DSs. I'm like, hey, this is from the band money. This is your payment for the month or the 6 months or something like that. And when we're sitting in the van, we can play Mario Kart together.
Nice.
And on like there's like sort of like a wireless thing that you could play between. But anyway, so yeah, it wasn't really profitable because you kind of keep putting money back into it. Mm-hmm. And that's just the reality. And I think, that was some of the struggle with some of the other members, and even myself. It's like, that's why people quit music before they get to any level, because it's like, man, I can't make any money doing this. And it's like, well, you gotta push through that dip. And most people quit in that dip, and they go, man, I just can't do this any longer. Which is why if you come from money, or if you have, if you have money, you can push through that longer than the average person. And that's where you lose a lot of people in the music industry who are super talented, but they just can't figure it out. And they go like, I gotta, I want to have a life. I want to get married. I want to do something else with my life. And I just can't make $0 anymore. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh yeah.
But there's.
Were you working at the same place then throughout Escape from Earth?
So I worked at Arthur Anderson, probably almost, yeah. I quit after a few years, like 3 years over there. And then I went over to one of my clients, which was a little easier, less hours, a little more flexibility. And then it was like, because actually I was just having this conversation with a co-writer of mine. He's got a day job, and we just got this placement, in a pretty big placement on a commercial. And he's like, when did you know that you could kind of quit your job and become a full-time musician? And I'm like, at least for me, it wasn't like, oh, I got enough money, I'm done. It was sort of a slow ramp down of working. So like I worked at Arthur Anderson, then I went to a client, then I went to work part-time at actually it's my current accountant's place, like for 3 days a week. And then it was just busy season from like Jan to March, and then eventually it was, and that was over maybe 3 or 4 years of ramping it down. So it wasn't like, hey, I suddenly have enough money to do this. Also, I'm a little bit risk averse too. So it's like, okay, I want to make sure I have, I'm making a little bit of money, so I'm not exclusively relying on music to pay the bills at that point. So as the music money went up, I could, whatever. As I started making more music, I could start doing less with my accounting work, until eventually it took 3 or 4 years at least of kind of weaning myself off of that.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because I think a lot of times we want to be like, oh, one day I'm going to start this and just succeed. It just happens. Yeah. I jump and it works. But so much, you have to lay the groundwork for anything, no matter what type of business it is, whether it's a band or like a typical brick and mortar or online business. There's so much work.
Any kind of anything. Yeah. I mean, like, exactly. And I think there are occasional cases where somebody has an instant either hit, success, whatever it happens to be, but man, I don't think that's not the usual. That's pretty rare, I think. So I think a lot of people, that's why a lot of people are like, man, I just want to quit my job. I'm like, maybe just cut back your hours, maybe find a little easier job. Maybe, and like a lot of employers, if you're a good employee, they know you're a musician. Like tell them, hey, can I start working 4 days a week instead of 5 or whatever it might be. And just wean yourself off of that. And that way you still have money coming in. Because the other side of it is if you just quit your job and go, okay, now I'm going to be a musician or I'm going to do a startup or entrepreneur of some kind, then suddenly you got all this pressure on you to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might not make the right decisions. You'll be making short-term decisions instead of longer-term ones. And, you run your business into the ground. And then you're like dejected. You go back to your day job. You're like, okay, I can't do that. As opposed to take it a little slower. I don't know. That's the way I did it. It can work different ways, but that's what worked for me is taking it slower.
Yeah, for sure. And
yeah,
for me, I actually lost my job. So that's what dumped me right into the entrepreneurial world. But I had been spending years building up relationships and connecting with people. So day one, I was able to reach out and start helping people. And that was something
right.
What's that?
Was that from COVID or was that years ago?
No. This is 2009. Yeah, because I've been
so right
solo for the last decade or so. So yeah,
that's what I thought. Okay, and that actually, let me to that. I also one of the steps I made was I got laid off from my job because the company got bought. That was one of my steps towards I'm taken out of my full-time job. Then I went part-time. It was tough to make the decision. Probably the same thing maybe for you. It was tough for me to quit. Yeah. It was easier to be like, I got laid off. So now I don't have to make that decision. Somebody made it for me, and now I can.
It's funny
because
I sense we're a lot alike because I'm very risk averse. Like everything that I do you have to have the creativity, but there's a lot of calculations that go into, are we going to invest in this project or this person or client? Even maybe we're investing in them, trying to see future benefits on our side or things like that. But I think it's just funny because you also mentioned magician. That was totally on my list growing up. So, yeah.
All right, I got a couple tricks somewhere. I don't know. I still try to pull them out once in a while.
Yeah. So let's jump forward to sort of now. And how would you describe Oh Hush and how would you describe Hate to Love Your Music? So what is the gist of those?
So Oh Hush. So let's go back actually. So okay. I'll move through it quick. But so Escape from Earth was the first iteration with Chris and Paul and Andy, and then those guys, Chris and Paul left. We added Scott and Mike. And then the next thing after Escape from Earth was I'm going to start a solo project called Oh Hush. And I had Scott and Andy and other people help me out with it. But, and this was the ultimate middle finger to the industry. Like, I'm going to do everything the exact opposite of everything. So like Oh Hush was a secret band initially. I didn't, I put up a picture of it was like a 50s lady, this yellow ugly logo. I just put out songs and so 0 pictures of the band, no names of any of the members of the band, 0 touring. These are all the exact opposite of what a record label wanted at the time. 0 anything, but I marketed the heck out of it on MySpace. And we did unbelievably. So, I mean, the songs were good, and that was the key. Like, it was good music, but then there was this buzz around who's in this band, who is it, what is it, and it got crazy. Like, is it a Fall Out Boy side project? Is it a Panic at the Disco side project? Which is crazy that those bands are still relevant today. But, and we had crazy marketing not schemes, but just ideas where we would sell merch, and then I made a puzzle. And this is just one example. And I broke the puzzle into 50 pieces. So the first 50 people that bought this got a puzzle piece. So then it was like everyone got this puzzle piece. So they had to come together online, try to put this thing together online. And it was like a riddle that led to a new song. And again, stuff that I feel like today would be like, oh, that's cool. But this was it was so pretty groundbreaking at the time.
It really is. I mean, that just as soon as you just started saying, because I knew Oh Hush was a secret project, but then you're deliberately doing everything the opposite. I mean, that's baked in marketing. That's just that's through and through that band, the solo project grew from your creativity, and I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, literally, I spent all day. I mean, like it was in the studio a little bit, and then I was literally on MySpace all day, which was the arm of it at the time, just commenting, talking, writing blogs, whatever it happened to be. So it was like, 50-50 marketing and music. And, it's kind of same thing, like put out a song every single month. We had a song every month, and just, a lot of the things that today are commonplace, but back then it was like, man, like a new song every month. Wow, this band is anyway. But so that led to a lot of record label interest, and every record label was like, well, we want to see the band. And my manager was like, there's no band. He's like, well, what are we supposed to do with this? He's like, I don't know. You guys figure it out. We're blowing something up here. We literally had like the #1 blog on MySpace several different times.
Nice.
And so it was hitting all the radars, and they're like, well, we don't know what to do with this thing. And we're like, fine, we're just going to keep going. We were actually making money with this project. It was something that was, so we're like, we don't need a record deal. I was kind of done touring and playing, like, unless it was going to be something that was on, better terms, like as opposed to riding in a van, with 10 different dudes. And so it wasn't like we wanted a record deal.
How were you monetizing that then? Since you weren't touring, weren't doing shows.
So it was merchandise, and we would have a new merch item all the time. And it was like, we always had like caps on it. Like, we're going to sell 100 shirts and that's it. And they would go in like an hour, they'd be gone. And then we'd be like, man, we need to do more. But and then we got ultimately to an album release. So it was an album shirt. Like, it's crazy. I feel like I invented the Cameo app about 10 years before it was invented. Like, one of the things I offered was, I will leave an outgoing voicemail on your voicemail thing, or I'll do a personalized video saying hi or something like that as part of one of the packages, which is the Cameo app, isn't it? Like, that you can have a celebrity. I guess I was probably a celebrity to a few people, but anyway, we did all that stuff, and we monetized it, and we just monetized it with merch. We probably sold like, I don't know, 10 or 15,000 t-shirts. Like, it was crazy town. And so record labels didn't know what to do with it. Everybody wanted to see a show. We said, we're not doing shows, so forget it. And then one girl just said, hey, I get it. Let me take it to my boss. And her boss was a guy named Mike Karen. And Mike's like, I don't want to sign an effing secret band, but I love these songs. Can we do a publishing deal with the singer? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to tour. I'm kind of done with the band thing. I love marketing and I love the music, but I'm not really that. I don't want to kind of go back into the band thing, unless it's, like I said, I was more of a prima donna, I think, at that point. So, so I signed a publishing deal, as which is publishing deals like for songwriting and stuff like that. So, I signed with Artist Publishing Group, Mike Karen's company, and that was sort of the birth of Oh Hush, the writer producer. I still did the artist thing, but that was more like, hey, start writing and producing for other people as opposed to just my own stuff. So your question was, that, and then the sort of the business. So that was the transition from artist to producer writer. And I can talk about that more, or
Oh yeah. So where's the line between Oh Hush and Hate to Love Your Music then? Is it just sort of all in this one and the same, or?
It's Hate to Love Your Music's kind of just like the business arm of, it's kind of just where I run my business through. Like, Oh Hush is the artist. Hate to Love Your Music is kind of the business, but like it's sort of commingled at this point. It's kind of the same thing though, effectively. Like, Oh Hush was a brand and a band, and now it's my producer name and writer name, and Hate to Love Your Music is kind of my, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's sort of the business side of it, maybe even a publishing arm a little bit.
Yeah. What was the impetus for that name?
For which one? Hate to Love Your Music? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was young, I was probably a teenager. My mom, I can't remember what she said. She said something about hating to love something, and I was like, oh, great. So I wrote, actually, it was first a song that a band pre-Escape from Earth wrote called Hate. It was called Hate to Love You. So it was like a Beatlesy kind of song. I hate to love you. Real super pop song. It sounds like it could be an angry song, but it was a super pop song. And then I liked it. And I'm like, I'll just make that my sort of business name. And it was my publishing company for a while and all that too. So yeah, that's where, and it's somehow, my mom is always like, she used to tell us to, oh, hush in the basement. It's like, and yell at us, oh, like we're making too much noise. So like, all right, there's another, she would say, oh, hush, Chris. So I remember my screen name on AIM for a while was Oh Hush Chris. And then I was like, oh Hush, maybe that's a cool band name. And that's where, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
my mom.
um, nice. Would you? What was that transition like then? So you were writing for yourself, you were performing, you were doing all this, then suddenly you're writing for other people. Was there a big
Yeah.
learning curve?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like it was, and I think when I was in Escape from Earth and doing Oh Hush as an artist, I think my long term goal was always to be a writer producer. But I felt like that's what older people do, and I like I just thought that would be something later on down the road. So it kind of happened quicker than I wanted, or I thought it was going to happen. And ironically, starting at 20 these days doing that is a good idea because you get a head start. But anyway,
Hmm.
um, yeah, the transition was it was big. It was a lot of a learning curve, and I mean, so like for me, it was like used to writing with my band members or myself. I just write by myself or write with band members. As a songwriter, suddenly you're in the room. Like I'd go out to LA for a week and I'd do 10 different sessions with 10 different people. And you're just like, you meet them and you write a song. And at first that was like kind of intimidating. And like I was in the room with, day one, I was in a room with a dude who's got like Demi Lovato cuts, and he's a superstar. And I'm just like this idiot from Chicago who was in kind of a rock like sort of pop band, and I like,
And
what am I supposed to do? He's like,
You're all writers, correct?
yeah.
Okay.
He's a writer producer, and yeah, I was kind of more of a writer, less of a producer at the time, but yeah, and it's like, the talent levels unbelievable. And so like at first I'm just sitting there like, I suck. I need to like, what am I even doing in this room? This guy's got, platinum records on his wall, and I've got like, my Oh Hush project or something like that. I think the irony now that I see is when some of these guys that have become friends are like, dude, I was so excited to be able to work with somebody that was actually an artist at the time.
Hmm.
And I was like, and I was excited to be able to work with people that actually were good, or amazing actually. And I was just this kind of, I mean, I guess I was kind of a raw talent at the time, but not even that. I felt like I didn't even belong in a lot of those rooms early on. It just felt like it was very intimidating. And you know what? The other side of that too is I was put in with a lot of the publisher I signed with is very urban, very like, a little more rap, that angle. And so they signed this, guitar playing rock guy.
My
And
apologies. I couldn't hear what you said.
well, Siri chimed in. What's going on? I don't know. um, so it was weird for me, like to be in those sessions, and I now realize like, oh, when you put people from different walks of life and genres together, you get some cool stuff sometimes, because it's like, wait, you mix a guy that plays guitar with a dude who's a rap guy. I play him some guitar thing, and then they create a loop out of it, and it's like, whoa, I wouldn't, like things that cool things can happen. But at the time, it was weird for me, and just trying to adjust to working with different people. That was the other thing. Like I was working with different people every day, and that was weird. That's hard to like every day you're in with a new person. You have to get to know them and write a song, in 5 hours and have something that's good. It was tough, but unbelievable. Like boot camp, and after you know. As time progressed, I got more comfortable, figured out sort of where my spot was, and you know, instead of working with different people all the time, you kind of find your group of people that you still want to work with new people to meet new people and all that, but stick with people that you've had you get, and they get you, and you can kind of have start you can kind of hit the ground running with them a little bit more. But it was a big transition though, for sure.
Yeah, you're not starting over then. Once you have a relationship, you know what people can bring to the table. That's really valuable. And
Right. Yeah. Today, like, I mean, when I'm setting up a session, and it's different now because I work mostly remotely, but it's like, I know that, I'm more the producer, and I'm going to find a great singer in the session, and then maybe somebody who's a great lyricist, and like that kind of combination. I know that you need to have that. Before, I was just like, I've, my publisher, or I would just book myself with people like, this is, hey, we're both producers. Like, yeah, but we both kind of do the same thing. So maybe this isn't going to make a great song. We're going to have a good time hanging and talking, but we're, neither of us are the right singer for this song. And maybe neither of us are the right lyricist, but so you got to find people that have their spots a little bit. And yeah, it took a few years to figure that out though.
yeah, so are you still working with that company? Or are you doing stuff through your own network? How does that work?
So I was signed to APG for like, yeah, through like a couple of years ago. And it was unbelievable experience there. It was all, they got me a ton of great big placements, and I learned a ton. Unbelievable experience. But then I just recently, a year ago, signed over with Network Publishing. So it's a little smaller publisher. They have a record label too, and it just I've sort of this goes back to the Escape from Earth days. Like I've always been super involved in the business side of everything, and even my background is business too. So like I have a lot of my own relationships with music supervisors and directors and TV show people and people at Netflix and Nickelodeon and Disney and all those types of things. And so Network offered a little bit more like flexibility on me being able to kind of chart my own way. They do a lot, but then I kind of have freedom to do a bunch of my own stuff as well. So yeah, but they're great. They're great as well, and it's so far it's been great.
Yeah. What do you have any advice for building a network? Because it's everything. And I mean, you're just going down the list just because we haven't really touched on it. Just looking at your Wikipedia page for Oh Hush, you've done the Lego Batman song, Lego Ninjago. You've worked with Weezer, Cee Lo, Jason Derulo, and a bunch of other people. And I imagine you find those connections, and you, through your network, you're sort of building these relationships and connecting with, I mean, some really big brands and artists.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing. Like when I first signed at APG, they were great about like, hey, we're going to walk you over to, like, there was a joint venture with Warner Chappell, which is Warner Brothers. We're going to walk you over there, and you're going to meet with these people, and so I'd meet those. But like I think a lot of people that were also signed over with me, they'd take that meeting and that was it. To me, it was like, oh, I have a new person here, and I'm going to email that person every 6 weeks and see what they're looking for and see what they might have work. And I think most people just don't do that kind of thing. They're not very proactive. It's maybe just a musician thing. But I was super proactive about maintaining relationships and asking them, so every time I met somebody, it wasn't like a one and done. It was like, oh, this is my new, this is a new friend I can work with going forward. And yeah, I mean, they're all great people too. So it was like, these are just new friends that I'm going to work with. And literally every step of the way, that's the way I always kind of approached it. And like, you go through, like, I think about, so like the Lego Batman stuff. So, when I was at APG, they hired a music supervisor named Gabe Hilfer. I met with Gabe. He placed a couple songs. I constantly followed up with Gabe and talked to him. Well, he left APG, several years after. Like he left maybe in 2015, but he was a guy I kept in touch with. And then in 2017 or whenever that Lego thing happened, he just called me and said, "Hey, we need a song for the end credits of Lego Batman. Do you want to give it a shot?" Like, okay. And then he's like, yeah, we had Julia Michaels try and Justin Tranter and all these big names and nobody wrote it. I'm like, well, if they didn't do it, how am I going to do this thing? And anyway, the super long story short there is, I got the song there and it was, but that was a guy that I had met 5 years before, on just a quick meeting somewhere that I kept in touch with. And then, so then I nailed Lego Batman for him. Then when they're doing Lego Ninjago, oh, let's call Chris up. We got stuck on the end credits, so they call me up and same thing. Well, the director on both of those movies is the same guy. That director is now working on a movie right now, and he calls me up and says, "Hey, I need 2 songs for this movie coming out with Chris Pratt, and can you work on it?" So like, you're totally right. It's not. It's kind of like compound interest. Like you build it up and it just keeps compounding, and you can't just like. Again, you have to be proactive about maintaining those relationships. And there's other times those guys have called me for stuff that I didn't nail for them, but I always take a shot and I try to deliver something that's quality so that even if it doesn't hit this time, the next time they'll still call me up and go, "Hey, give it a shot." And, but yeah, it's like, that's how I always say, like, a career it's not like one little thing. It's all those little things that happen along the way. And that's why there's like very few, like, boom, instantly you're a huge success. It's like, well, I can go back to 2008 and give you the chain of events that happened to lead me to the Lego Batman thing. So,
yeah. And
yeah,
that's why I'm doing this podcast. Is every business, every entrepreneur, no matter what people are doing, the journey is completely different. And there's so many little bits along the way that I feel like a lot of times people try to like maybe create a course and like, this is how you start a business and like follow these 4 steps. And Like that stuff I don't like, but I love diving into the stories just to sort of showcase that no, there is so much that went into it. And some of the stuff got you where you are today. Some of the stuff were maybe learning experiences and all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff that's happened. So I heard something. I think you were talking to James Van Osdale about Lego
Oh,
Batman. And did you
yeah.
run into some issues with that? Because you were like, there was some story along the lines of Will Arnett rapping and things when you were producing that.
Yes. So, okay, with him, so it literally was like Christmas Eve, and we weren't sure if Will Arnett was going to do the rap or like the other. So me and this other guy sang on the song, and he had sung the rap right now. Like, we think we're going to get Will to do it. Like, movie comes out in like 6 weeks. I'm like, I think they have to have it in the can by Christmas Day. So on Christmas Eve, they're like, hey, we got Will in the studio, and he's gonna cut the vocal. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm in Chicago, he's in LA. Like, can you Skype into this thing? I'm like, or Zoom or whatever it was at the time. And I do. And, Will Arnett, kind of crazy. He's there and he's in the vocal booth and he's singing. So they're like, okay, he's got the part. And they're trying to give him the track to rap over. And he's like, I can't do it. He's like, it's too hard with the music and all that. So he's like, let me just say the rap in free space, in air. And I'm like, and like the guy and the director's there, and there's other people for the movie there. They're like, oh, sure, that's fine. Yeah, just do it like that. And I'm sitting there, and the guy who's on the other end of the call, who's the engineer in the session, me and him are both like, oh, this is going to be brutal because like it doesn't work that way. There's a beat that he has to be on, and he's not going to be on it if the music's not playing. So they would just like play him, like one measure of the thing, and darkest, I can't remember what the rap is, but anyway, they'd play him the little thing and he'd just repeat it back like 10 times and they would just track the whole thing. But he wasn't singing it to music. He was singing it just free. And like, I'm sitting there like, this is going to be the worst thing ever. So they after whatever, I mean, the whole time he's like ad-libbing, he's hilarious. It's super funny guy. But after like 20 minutes, like, oh, we got it. And I'm like, I have no idea if we got it. Like, maybe I can't, it's not over music. And like, he's ready to go. It's Christmas Eve. He wants to get the heck out of there. And anyway, so he's out of there. We get the file back and I had to kind of like, it's actually very easy to manipulate files in Pro Tools, but it was still like trying to get it on the grid and make it sound like it was real. And, we got it there. It sounds great. He sounds amazing on it. He's got an unbelievably cool voice. But it was, that was like literally on Christmas Eve. I'm working on this thing, trying to get it done. But whatever it takes at that point, we literally were like 70 revisions into that thing. And it was crazy. I'm like, okay, if we can get this thing done, I can enjoy Christmas.
Yeah. So. And being that you're a singer then, and like you've done all of this, the first cut of these, I'm assuming you're singing the lyrics, or maybe like the demo. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so like the first thing was I had a track laying around. I literally just wrote a quick chorus to it, sent it to the music supervisor. He played it for the director, and he's like, "We love it." I'm like, "Really?" Like change one line, but no, go write some verses. So then it was, okay, I got to write some verses. So I called my buddy Jeff Lewis, and he wrote a bunch of verses for it. I wrote a couple verses for it. And they kind of gave us actually, he gave me a rough cut of the movie to watch, which was unbelievable, like super cool to see. Like, it's sort of there, but there's like some things that are not done. It's just it's really rough. So like I'm trying to, then I'm watching old Batman stuff to try to get inspiration as well, which was kind of fun. And then, we sent him, here's the lyrics and here's the verses. And the director's unbelievable. He's an unbelievably creative dude and he's great. He's very hands-on. So he literally went through all the versions and like picked out, hey, I like this part. I don't like this part. And, then we'd have conference calls weekly to talk about, the movie's changing a little bit. Like, we can't talk about selfies, even though it's there, but we're, so he would have lyrical suggestions or sometimes just like, we want to highlight Robin's, effervescent dressing. I don't know, whatever. Like, he'd have different things that he would throw at us. And it changed a bunch. Like in the hook, the line in the chorus is, "You're my best friend, but friends are family." He wanted to change it to "Bat Friend" at one point. And then we're like, everybody's like, my bat friend, like, but he was like, can it be bat friend? And like everybody, I was like, no way. But everybody else on his side was like, no way. So, but we tried out a bunch of stuff like that. He's like, just sing it one time. So we literally went back and forth a lot of times. I think literally there was probably about 70 versions of the song. And it would just kind of keep chipping away at it and getting it closer. And then it was, okay, we need a rap. And then we wrote a rap, and we like some of the rap. And then they had one of their guys, the writers, like rewrite the rap. And then they wanted us to take the lyric and make it work. And then we'd give them what we did and they'd tweak it. And yeah, it's a very collaborative process, which is cool. Like it was awesome to like kind of see how a movie gets made. And again, like working with this guy, one of the last things that happened maybe day before Christmas Eve, he's like, hey, we need a guitar solo in this song. I'm like, okay. So I do this guitar solo. He's like, great. Now, this is the director. He's like, it needs to be 1/3 Batman, 1/3 Alfred, and 1/3 Joker. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? He's like, well, each of them would have a different guitar, right? I'm like, yeah. So then it was like, what guitar would Alfred have? He's like 70, so he'd play it would be more of a classic guitar sound. Batman is like a metalhead, so he'd have like whammy bars and all that stuff. And the Joker is like probably funky Prince or something like that. So like funkier guitar. So, and that was like he kind of his idea. And I'm like, that's brilliant. Yeah. And like, and up on the screen during the credits, Batman or Alfred, it's different. It's each of them doing it differently. And it really works. Like at first you're like, this guy's creating so much work for me. But then when you see it, like, oh, those were great little details that this dude nailed, and having each of the different guitars for each of their parts was really cool. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that level of creativity is just so inspiring. Like just being around people who have that energy and like have the vision. Like I'm sure the collaborative process for other projects too has that similarity where people just chime in with something that maybe is completely off the wall, unexpected, but it just works.
Totally. That's what makes it fun, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to movies, and you've done a lot of commercials, how do those processes differ? Is there a difference to them?
So commercials it could be anything. Like it could be, I've had stuff where literally I just wrote a song for a song, just to have a song, and like, then when somebody's reaching out to either me or my publisher, they're like, hey, we're looking for a song that's something about, I'm trying to think of something I did. I don't know, something about like, whatever. If my song happens to exist we'll pitch that one. And it's just a song that exists that gets pitched. There's other ones like a couple of my Nutella songs. One of them is called Spread the Happiness. So Nutella, Spread, they said that, hey, we want a song for Nutella, and it needs to be like a, very positive song. So me and my co-writer, Hannah Ashbrook, we kind of sat down and like, okay, well, like we had Happy Place, we had done like, what about again, we started thinking about Nutella, spread the happiness. So we literally sat down and wrote, Spread the Happiness specifically for Nutella. So like that one's kind of fun because it kind of works. Like Spread the Happiness is just on the surface without a spread, it still works. Like, hey, be somebody that spreads the happiness. But the meaning for Nutella or, peanut butter or something is perfect. So, so that happened. And then I have a Clorox spot out right now. A song called Endless Possibilities that, like a year ago, Olive Garden came to my publisher and said, hey, we need a song about the Olive Garden, the buffet. And so we're like, okay, there's endless possibilities so we wrote Endless Possibilities for Olive Garden. It didn't land in Olive Garden. And then a year later, Clorox comes to him and says, hey, we want to like feature like the possibilities that kids, like a lot of the commercial is kids, just exploring different things. So like we need a song that explores all these different possibilities. And like the guy's like, oh, I got a song that's perfect. So that's actually how it works a lot of times. Like you'll write something specific for something else, it doesn't land there, but then subsequently there's a perfect use for it. That's happened so many different times on there's so many different things that I've done that's the way it worked. The initial thing you wrote it for doesn't hit, but then a year or 3 years later suddenly it's perfect for something else.
Yeah, and that's the beauty, because everything is still in like reality. You're not saying like Clorox is clean. Like the lyrics aren't like so obvious and like on the nose,
Right.
which is great.
So when people, you bring that up,
Yeah.
sorry, like, because I occasionally will get those projects, and I did one for Crest, and the chorus was supposed to be "My teeth are yellowing," and I was like, for Crest White Strip. So I did this song, "My teeth are yellowing," or "My smile is yellowing," and then like, of course, it didn't go for that, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do these projects anymore because what am I going to do with that song ever again?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
when that doesn't go
work.
through, then is that more of is it like spec work where you're pitching it and then seeing what happens, or do they pay for the samples?
It depends, and I'd say more often than not, it's spec. Or like historically, it was 95% spec.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, I can say no to more things, and I think maybe just I have a little bit more of a track record, so I can ask for a small demo fee or something like that. So yeah, if somebody comes to me with a demo fee and says I want a song called "My Smile Is Yellowing," okay, well if there's a little bit of money behind it, I know that if it doesn't go anywhere, I still at least get there's a little something for my time. So it's a little bit more on demo fees now, but still it's a lot of spec work. But that's why I try to focus on songs that like Spread the Happiness or Endless Possibilities that I know can work and go in other, for other things. Or if it's just a great song, I can put it out myself at some point.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to pricing, is that something your publisher works on, or do you have to negotiate that?
It's publisher. They do all the they set the fees for the publishing side. I own my own masters, so me and my manager will do that. Yeah, it depends on the project. Like it's a little bit of both, and that's where, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of negotiation and a lot of that. You realize how much wiggle room there is. Like, sometimes you get offered X dollars and you come back with I want 5X, and like suddenly they find the money. You're like, I almost agreed to X, and now it's 5X, and or alternatively, you ask for more, and then they tell you to go blow, and you're out of the job. So yeah, but yeah, my manager and publisher handle most of that stuff.
Yeah, pricing is so difficult when it comes to any sort of business because everything is fluid. Like we look at like store shelves and it's concrete, but most parts of the world are all negotiation. So if you're taking the
Totally.
price on the shelf, it's like, oh no, that isn't actually where they expected to, what they expected to earn or pay.
Not to mention the same exact thing, like the same song for the same level of product and same level of use, or same movie or same whatever, might be, like I said, 3 times higher in one. And it's just like, yeah. So pricing is like you got to try to, it's the sweet spot between trying to make as much as you can. Like in a lot of these things, like these movies have like $300 million budgets, and they're like, hey, we got like $3,000 for your song. Like, what? $3,000 for this end credit? And my business is a lot of, or it's mostly like, it's a handful of big things that are my whole year. So like, it's not like I land like every week somebody calls or every, it's like one a month you get, that's a bigger one. And you have to kind of make as much money on each of them as you can. Cause those are, it's not like, again, I don't get paid by the hour. I don't get paid by the project and all that. It's when stuff lands.
Yeah. And you only have so much time as a creator, right, as a creative. So really you have to figure out how to scale that appropriately.
Totally.
I've heard about Spotify's monetization. Is that like, does it work? I mean, or do you have to be that like, what was it, Pharrell with Happy, and he made like a couple grand or something?
It's like, man, it's such I love Spotify, and so I'm a shareholder too. And I always tell people, I'm like, if you think Spotify is ripping you off, buy stock, because it's going to go through the roof, right? If they're making so much money, and it's like doubled this year. So I was like, should have been buying Spotify stock. Anyway, if you own your own, so if you're signed to a label, the label puts the music out through Spotify. The label collects a lot of that money. So because they negotiate directly with the label, and they collect a lot of it. So you make kind of peanuts if the label has it. But if you are putting it out as an independent artist, you make like maybe 0.04 cents a spin, which is not terrible. Like if you have, I don't know what the math is on that, but it's like if you have like let me just do it real quick. If you have 1 million spins times 0.04, So you'd make $4,000 every million spins. Like, like 500 million spins is not that or 100 million spins. I mean, like I think there's money to be made. Not to mention, it's so easy to do it. You can put out stuff all the time. I think, I don't know. People that complain, I'm like, just get with, like, figure out the game. Stop giving up put out music yourself. If you think, because I don't think Spotify is ripping people off. I think the record labels are ripping off the people, or not ripping off, but they're collecting all the money. So you need to negotiate with the label. If you wrote a song for the label, you need to negotiate with them, with your contract with them, to get more of that Spotify money, because the money's there. It's just if it's through a label, the label's going to take 95% of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I love Spotify. It's the best thing that's ever happened to music, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and as a user, I love it. I obviously have no other experience beyond being a subscriber, but it's a phenomenal platform.
It's great, right? Yeah, no, I mean, like, exactly. As both a user and a listener and a content creator, you can't beat it. I don't know. I think it's the best thing that's happened. Yeah, I mean, it democratized music to the nth degree, where anybody within, like, if I want to put out a song by tomorrow, I probably could have it up and boom, done.
What is your length of time wise? How long would you normally, like, on average, spend on a song?
Oh man, like it's never like start Monday and Wednesday, or like occasionally, rarely it is, but like, a lot of times it's somebody needs something, and I have an instrumental track that works, but it doesn't have the right lyrics, so I'll send the track to a writer who will write and sing it. So I'll have the track laying around, and then that person will write it, and I'll mix it. It's probably like it takes like 3 to 4 days of or maybe 20 hours is the right number, or 25 hours on average, but that can be spaced out over months or years. Yeah, so for sure. I might make the track in 5 hours one day. 6 months later, somebody writes something to it. We mix it, we work on it. Then there's revisions. Then it sits for another 6 months, and we rewrite it. There's a lot of, like, my catalog probably has 1,000 songs, and there's a lot of, like, I have something that's close, so maybe we can repurpose this old song for this spot. It's like, it's a little less glamorous than, like, I'm past the days of, like, this is my art, this is the song. I'm not, that's it. And it's like, somebody needs something, it needs to be a little different. We'll change it. We'll I don't know. It's like the cost of making a living, making music. It's fine. I don't care. Like, nothing's precious really to me at this point. There's very few things that are precious. I'm just happy to get art that gets heard by people. And if, like these brands and movies, and even artists for that matter, like when, Weezer cut the song, they made a bunch of changes to what we worked on. It's totally fine. I just want people to hear the song. It's great, and wasn't our exact initial vision of it, but who cares?
And so, I didn't even ask this, but a Grammy nod, like a nomination, what was that like? Because
I got two of them.
Oh yeah, because it's I think I have it right here too, isn't it? Was it Weezer and Cee Lo?
Yeah, Twilight. And, yeah, like the first one was, like the Cee Lo thing was my publisher. I'm in LA. This is like so I'm in LA. He's like, hey, Twilight needs a song for Gnarls Barkley. I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, I don't know what I'm gonna do with that. He's like, I got a title for you. I'm like, okay, cool. He said, is what part of blank don't you understand? He loves catchphrases. So he says, like, people say, like, what part of no, what part of whatever don't you understand, right? Or what part of, like, clean the dishes don't you understand, whatever. So he said, just come up with a blank, come up with something to say that fits for Twilight. So I come back to Park Ridge, and my buddy Rob Kleiner, who's a successful producer too, I went to high school with him, huge Gnarls Barkley fan. So I'm like, I'm calling this dude up. We're going to figure this thing out. So we get together, and I had read all the Twilight books up and down. So I knew them all super, super cold. And we just, like, in a day we came up with the music. And then the next day I'm like, are you familiar with the Twilight books?
Not the books. I did see the movies.
Or movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever. So the vampires live forever. So I was like, what part of I love you forever? So I initially was like, what part of I love you forever don't you understand? And I'm like, no, what part of forever? And so that was a good, like, we wrote the track in one day, we wrote the vocal the next day. I literally sent it to my publisher that night. I sent it to my manager too. My manager said, this sucks. Don't even send it in. I was like, I'm just going to send it in. Next day, my publisher says, this is unbelievable. I'm going to play it for Cee Lo right now. Like later that night, Cee Lo loves it. He's cutting it tomorrow. That one, so we wrote it in 2 days. Within 1 week, Cee Lo had cut the song. Amazing. And then by maybe 10 days later, they played it for the Twilight people, and they're like, this is perfect. It's in the movie. Like unbelievable. And like, really by the way, it never works that way. It never works that way, but it worked that way that time. Mm-hmm. And my buddy was like, oh, this is so easy. We write a song, it goes into a huge movie. And then, then of course it came out, it was number two album the week it came out. I think Glee beat it. And then we got nominated for a Grammy on it. Wild. That was my first thing that happened too. It's like I signed my publishing deal, and within 6 months or a year, I got a Twilight, Cee Lo, and a Grammy. Now I'm like,
jeez,
what?
That sets the bar a little high, doesn't it, for the first year?
Right. So right, and then I was like, the next year I didn't get nominated for a Grammy. I'm like, oh, I'm taking a couple steps back here.
That's funny.
Yeah. I don't. It's weird. I mean, yeah. So that's the 2 day write a song in 2 days. There's write a song in 2 years too. So yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
Goes both ways.
Oh yeah. Not to take too much more of your time. This has been awesome, but just a couple more questions.
Go ahead.
Actually, I'm just going to jump to this one. If this was all a dream, so everything you've done so far isn't real. You wake up tomorrow. It's a brand new day. You have all the experience. Everything is valid, but you don't have the connections. You don't have the network, and you don't have like the business in place. What do you think might be like your first steps to like restarting this in this world?
So my skill level is where it's at.
Everything's the same in terms of what you know and experience, but you were starting for whatever reason from the ground floor today.
I would probably find a new job. I would trade stocks. No. Okay, that's a great question. I mean, I know I can. I mean, like people always say, reverse engineer like where you want to be, right? So like I already could reverse engineer it super easy. So I would start to try to find connections with. The problem is, okay, I would know who to connect and how to connect with them. The problem is you have to have something going on. And you said I have nothing going on, right?
Or yeah, you're starting at the like maybe let's see.
I don't have any resume.
Yeah, the business isn't where it is now. You like maybe you have the stuff you've written in the past, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I have the songs from the past, that would be huge because I would say I would know how to reach out to people. I know how to track down email addresses. I know how to connect with people on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever it happens to be. And I think I know how to like kind of sell what I can do and, be not a pest, not enough of a pest to piss them off, but bug them enough to stay on the radar. I mean, if I had the songs laying around that I have today, I think with all that, I could open those doors pretty quickly. Like you said, my first step would be just to kind of like figure out what my best songs are. Maybe a top, like a demo reel of like 5 or 10. I kind of have that, but I would have maybe create a website or something like that, do I have a website or no?
Sure. You have recreate. A website. Yeah.
Okay. Recreate the website, like get my songs ready. And then like, I would do kind of like a spray pitch to like publishers, managers, artists, music supervisors. I'd probably try to track down 100 different people and over the course of a month, like fire out emails to those people and, just tell them, hey, here's who I am. These are some songs I've done. I think I'd be, great for your brand because I can this, or I'd be great for your movie, or I'd be great to write with some of your artists. This is my production skills. It's funny in the music business, half of it is resume. I think like that's like, oh, who have you worked with? Who, what are some of your things? So like, fortunately I do have enough of a resume now where I can say, hey, Lego Batman, like, oh, my kid loves the movie. And, so I've got an instant jumping off point with people or Weezer or something like that. So that's huge. So I would imagine a lot of people probably wouldn't give me the time of day, but I could definitely get a few of those doors open. Mm-hmm. I might also switch gears and put out some of my music. I don't release that much of it unless it's like the Clorox song. We get it in the commercial and then we release it on Spotify. because we got to, something's pushing it. We'll get some sales on it. I don't release music though that's not out there because it's like, well, some brands just want to have unreleased songs, and then that's cooler to them, and then they kind of launch the song. But if I didn't have anything happening, I might put out more songs. I might go back to artist Chris a little bit too, and build that back up, because I like when people say, how do you go get a publishing deal or how do you succeed? I tell them the best way might be just to be an artist and put out your own music and try to create a buzz yourself, for yourself, on yourself. And, that's like, that would be a great way to like, hey, my Spotify, I've got, 500,000 or I've got 100,000 Spotify listeners a month. Like that would be a good statistic to start telling people, and you could open doors with something like that. So actually, I think I might go back to just starting with putting stuff out myself. Cause I would try to hit up all those people I talked about, sending out emails, but it would probably be a slow go. So I would start to put out music myself and rebrand Oh Hush. Even it didn't exist, so I'd know how to do it, and I'd just do it again.
Yeah, that hustle, that is the thing. I think to instill in people that is what it takes. I mean, if you're starting from the ground floor, you got to build up that network. You got to put in the work, because no one's going to hand anything to you. So yeah, totally. I love that. Just knock on as many doors as you can.
You can out hustle. I think I was always a better hustler. I feel like my hustle is better than my talent level. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. My hustle has always exceeded my talent. My talent, whatever. There's people that are way more talented than me that don't hustle, that are not as successful. And it's just, they don't hustle, or they don't know how to. Maybe it could be that, but I mean, it's like 50-50. I feel like they're both so equally important, and you can make up for lack of talent with outworking people, I think too.
For sure. Well, not to take any more of your time. Thanks so much for doing this. This is great.
Oh, good. No, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, where should people go to follow along with what you're up to?
That's a good question. My website's actually not done yet.
Oh, really?
I mean, like Instagram, Chris Sernel, ChrisSernel is a good one. Yeah, Twitter, Oh Hush Music. Yeah, those are good places.
Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again for doing this. This was awesome.
No, thanks. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
All right, man.
Sweet. See ya.
See ya.
A big thanks goes out to Chris for joining me on this episode. Be sure to check out Oh Hush and what he's up to on Twitter and Instagram. You'll find those links in the show notes. As always, this episode of Start Now is brought to you by Built. At Built, we help you get started online. Whether you want to start a blog or a business, head on over to built.co. That's BYLT.co to get started. Built. Your website, built for you, simply. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out the video version of this show on YouTube. You'll find all the links for this episode at built.co/011. That's BYLT.co/011. Well, that'll do it for this week. Again, I'm Jeff Sarris. This has been Starting Now, and I'll see you next time.